In August of last year, I bought my first ever 3D printer, the Ender 3 V2. Now in today's video, I want to share my experiences over the past year with this printer. So here is a year in review with the Ender 3 V2. Yo, what is going on everybody? Burger Creations back here with another video, and before we get started, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to you guys because you guys are super awesome, super supportive, and it's honestly just amazing. So currently I think 3.2% of you right now watching this video are subscribed to me, and I just want to say thank you guys so much for subscribing and watching the videos, and I hope you're enjoying them. It just means a lot, and I hope we continue. If you want to join them and make that number bigger, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below to join the family and join the fun. Now without further ado, let's talk about what my experience is and my overall year review of the Ender 3 V2. So throughout this video, we're going to be covering a number of topics, and I'm going to leave timestamps to all of them down below. So if you're looking for something specific, or if you wanted to reference back to it, you can quickly scroll down to there. Now the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to be comparing what the Amazon ad or the ad for this printer is to what I actually experienced. Then we're going into the upgrades that I made for this printer, following then the problems that I experienced with this printer, the pros and the best things that I love about this printer, and finally the overall conclusion and if I would recommend this printer. So the first thing, and this was the thing that caught my eye that advertised for this printer, is the silent motherboard, stating that this printer is pretty much silent. And honestly, I have to agree, this printer is super quiet, especially compared to other printers. Now don't get me wrong, it's not completely silent, but it's definitely much more quieter than a printer without a silent motherboard. Now this clip I took here is pretty much, I'm gonna stop talking so there's no audio so you can hear how loud the printer is. Now this sound is with the printer printing, so that's at fans full blast, temperature all the way up, motor on, moving back and forth, etc. It pretty much never exceeds that volume, and honestly it's pretty easy to deal with, and so I think on that mark they hit it right away. Next up is they claim to have the printer have an exquisite appearance. Now it's quite a fancy way to say it looks nice, but I have to honestly agree. I like how the Ender 3 V2 looks compared to the Ender 3, the Ender 3 Pro, the Ender 5, CR10s. I like how clean it looks. Now the new CR10 Smart kind of builds off this look, and I don't know, I think it just looks a lot cleaner, a lot more modern, and a more put together machine. I mean, the Ender 3 doesn't even have a backing to the actual screen. This has a full casing within the whole UI interfacing system. So I have to say, I mean, I think that's more of an opinion, but I personally think this is, as they call it, exquisite design. Next up, it says high precision printing. Now this thing prints extremely well, especially for the price, and I am so happy with the print quality. I absolutely love it. Now it says high precision. I mean, it can, I would say I agree with this. I mean, I barely have had any problems with this printer in terms of printing. Now I have had problems, again, I'll get that into later, but when it comes to printing, I mainly am pretty damn good. I pretty much set it, forget it, and it almost comes out perfect, or almost to exactly what I want every single time. And if you've watched previous videos with me looking at prints or going over prints, you can see that as well. Now next thing they talk about is better bed adhesion with this new bed, and I have to completely agree with this. I have flawless bed adhesion. When this printer is perfectly leveled, I mean, I literally, it's flawless. It's absolutely perfect. I've never had to use glue sticks, tape, hairspray, or any additives to help with bed adhesion. I've pretty much never had a print slide off, maybe once or twice, but that's because the bed was not leveled and not because of the print bed itself. That's mainly because of me, but I pretty much, this bed is absolutely amazing, and I was considering upgrading it to a flexible PID sheet, but I decided not to because I've had no problems with this bed, and it's worked really well, and I love the finish it gives off, and the prints stay on the entire time, I'll print, and then once it cools, I literally just flick it right off with barely any scraping. So I definitely, absolutely love this bed. Next two things it talks about is 5 minutes to heat up the bed, as well as easy to operate, and I agree with both of these again. So I think I clocked in my bed heating up to 69 degrees in about just over 3 minutes. So that's well under the 5-minute mark. So it's a nice quick heat up. And for ease of use, I mean, the interfacing system definitely helps with the ease of use, but I think what really helps with the ease of use is the amount of community and support around it. It makes this printer extremely easy to use, and if you have any problems, very easy to kind of problem solve and figure out using the internet. The last three things that this printer, that they claim this printer has, is resume printing, smart add-on functions, and a new user interface. Now these are all absolutely true. If I unplug this printer right now, it's gonna stop, but I replug it in, I'll have my interface load up, and it asks me, do I want to resume print? And I can hit yes, and then off it goes. As smart add-ons, I'm assuming they mean like the BL Touch, the CR Touch, being able to upgrade this to a touchscreen and adding different things. That's what I'm assuming they mean by that, and that is also true. It was very easy adding the new CR Touch, as well as it probably would be easy to upgrade into a touch screen. And finally, the last thing it said was the new user interface, and I mean, that's pretty obvious. That's one of the reasons I kind of like this. I love the user interface compared to the regular Ender 3 and Ender 3 Pro. Not saying there's anything wrong with it, it's just this looks a lot more sleeker, more up to date, and just makes the machine look a little bit more, I guess, expensive in a way, instead of looking a little bit like they cut corners. So next up, we're going to be looking at the upgrades, mods, or things I had to change on this printer itself. And now some of these upgrades and mods you don't necessarily have to do, or it's not something that's required, but some of these are really kind of important, and if you are looking into this machine, I would say expect to either eventually or get it right away, so expect to put in a little more money than the base price. Now out of the box, this printer does print fine and it will work, but I would say over sometime you will need to do some upgrades. So let's get into it. Now the first two upgrades that I did on this printer itself was upgrading to a fully metal extruder, as well as Bowden tubing. Bowden tubing is something I would say immediately get. That was something that caused a problem with me. The tubing it came, I think it can't handle as much heat. It's also a little bit wider, so the filament moves more. Bowden tubing is so much better, helps direct the filament more easily into the nozzle for less clogs, less failures, etc. So if you buy this printer, I would say buy the Capricorn tubing with it, because it is an extremely easy upgrade to do, and I think an extremely necessary one to do. Now next up is the bottom spring. Now that's the spring and the spring adjuster. Now these were actually the next upgrades that I purchased, and I would say definitely necessary. Now you could end up just getting the springs and not the metal spring adjusters too. I did that on my other printer and it worked perfectly fine, but I definitely would say swap out the springs. The springs the Ender 3 V2 comes with, they're okay, but they're not extremely strong and durable, so they'll wear out or wear off over time, causing your print to become unlevel and continuously having to re-level your bed every single time. These new springs definitely help get that bed, once you level it, to stay more perfectly that way. Once you do it once, you don't have to do it too many times over. I've also had problems where my spring and my wheel broke off and ended up damaging my nozzle on this guy and having to clog the print. So that's another upgrade I would say I definitely would look into. You don't have to do the red wheels or the metal wheels, but definitely at least do the springs. 100% worth it, and that way it's again another easy upgrade, something you can easily do by yourself, and it would probably save you a headache. Next few upgrades that we're going to talk about are a little bit more complex for the system. Now they are not necessary, but some I do recommend, but if you don't have them, it's not going to kill you. First up is this little device right to the left of my print head, and that is the CR Touch. The CR Touch basically allows you to have auto leveling inside your printer. So how it works is you wire in the CR Touch from the board and you attach it next to the print head. You set around the offsets and you basically create a mesh so that every time it will probe the device, adjust itself, so you have almost perfectly level print every single time. Now, is the CR Touch, or it's also called the BL Touch, is the CR Touch necessary? No, but I highly suggest it. Now, I did not install, it was called a BL Touch at the time. There still is a BL Touch, but I would recommend getting the CR Touch because, I don't know, it looks nicer. But originally did not get a BL or CR Touch because I was actually scared of the actual wiring in. I thought it'd be a lot more difficult than it was. I looked it up originally and I saw that you had to go into the back of the printer, open it up, pull out one plug, put the other plug in, and then download a new interface system. Now it sounds complicated, but it is easier than it sounds, and there's a lot of YouTubers that help you through it and make it very easy to follow videos. Now I didn't originally do it because I thought I didn't want to break anything or it seemed too complicated, but I completely regret that decision because once I got this, my print bed has been perfectly leveled every single time and I have never had to worry about leveling my print again. Now it's definitely a good thing to know on how to manually level the bed, but when you manually level the bed, there's room for error. And when there's room for error, you have more print failures, you can have stuff sliding off, stuff not sticking right, etc. Honestly, I highly recommend just getting the CR Touch. Now the last two upgrades that I did to it is 100% not necessary at all, except if you do end up getting the BL or CR Touch. Now one of them is upgrading the interface software to Jiver's software. Jiver software, I think I'm saying that right. I'm not going to go too much into it, but basically it's, I think it's fan-made. I believe it's a fan-made interfacing system for the Ender 3 V2 that basically puts more information on the page, allows you to customize, and it's just so much better than the original interface. Now why I say you need that upgrade if you're doing the CR Touch is because whenever you do the CR Touch, you have to upgrade your firmware. Now I originally upgraded to the Creality firmware. But when I did that, my prints kept freezing every single time mid-print. I did not have a successful print under the CR Touch Ender 3 Creality software. I ended up switching to the Jiver software and it has worked perfectly. I've never had a freeze since. So I would say if you're getting a CR or BL Touch, definitely do the Jiver software. Again, very easy. Lots of YouTubers can show you how to set it up, but I would definitely recommend it if you're going to install that BL or CR Touch, because at least for me, I had problems with the Creality software. Now the last one is using Octoprint. Now I don't have Octoprint set up on this printer, it's actually on my other printer. Octoprint is just very useful, it's very easy to use, and it just makes it more convenient. Now I don't fully know much about Octoprint and I am not using it at its full potential right now. The only thing I do for it is I'm able to drop files into my printer without moving in and out of the SD, and then I also do Octolapse, but I paused Octolapse right now because I'm having a problem with my camera. There's so many different plugins and enables for Octoprint. It's definitely not necessary or required or anything. It's more just for convenience, and I know there are some safety features or some things that can help you. I think like the spaghetti detector, where it can shut off your print if it detects lots of spaghetti or misprintings on the print, but it's definitely not something you 100% need. So it's more expensive because you have to buy the Raspberry Pi, and I found that to be the most complex upgrade that I did to the system. But I would say if you have the money and you want to continue to tinker this machine, or you already have this machine, you're looking for a new upgrade, go ahead and do it. Otherwise, if you're first starting out, I wouldn't worry about too much about Octoprint just yet. Problems I'm going to talk about, this can happen to any printers. These are just problems that I experienced with this printer in general. Some of these are not Ender 3 V2 related. Most of them are just basic 3D printing errors. Some of them are done by me, and some of them I don't know how they happen, but let's go through them. The first problem that I experienced with the Ender 3 V2 is clogging nozzle, and this came from unleveled bed. Now I had one end of the bed a little too tight, and it ended up pushing the filament against the top of the nozzle and clogging my nozzle. That's easily fixable. You can clear out the nozzle, push filament through, and you continue printing, but that can cause print failures if you don't catch it right away. Now to prevent having a clogged nozzle, you just make sure your bed is perfectly leveled and your flow temp and everything is at the correct temperature for your type of filament. Now this is not an Ender 3 V2 problem, that's a general 3D printing problem, but that's just something I experienced with my time and over the year with my Ender 3 V2. Next up was overheating. My middle element of my 3D printer overheated, and again, that is my fault, that is not the printer's fault. That is when I had it in a complete enclosure and I had basically everything sealed up with no way hot air to escape, so the hot air kept building up and up, and eventually it overheated my printer and caused a bust in the middle of filament, which ended up ruining my Capricorn tubing and clogging my hot end. It is somewhat an easy fix, but I didn't realize it was the enclosure for a while, so I had that happen about 4 to 5 times before I finally figured out that let me let some cold air in, or let the hot air out, and I have not experienced that problem since. So that's, I think, again, with every 3D printer. So it's not specifically for the Ender 3 V2. Next up is filament grinding. Now this is, again, not specific to the Ender 3 V2. This can be with any printer, but I specifically had a decent amount of trouble recently with filament grinding. Filament grinding is when your extruder keeps spinning and spinning and spinning, and basically creates a notch or grinds out your filament so much that it can't push it through anymore, so your printer stops printing. And it is extremely annoying, and I've had a decent amount of problems with it. Now, to counteract these problems, there's a couple of solutions, such as increasing your nozzle temp, slowing your speed down, slowing your retraction speed, slowing your retraction distance, and these are all things I'm doing, but I have to say it is extremely annoying. My speed cannot go over 35 right now. I have a low retraction setting and a low retraction distance, causing lots of stringing on prints. So it's something I am still dealing with, but that is a problem I'm having. I did not have that initially, but I'm definitely dealing with that now, and it is extremely frustrating. If you guys know any other solutions I can do, or if I can just get this printer going a little bit faster, I can't even print at the speed of 50 anymore because it usually grinds out my filament, and it is annoying. I print at 209 nozzle temp, and I have a 69 bed temp, and I am doing more research into looking on how I can fix the retraction speed and moving it around. One thing I did think of was switching to a direct drive. If you don't know what that means, it's where the filament feeder sits right on top, so the filament goes right in. That should eliminate most of my problems with the extruder, except this doesn't have a dual Z axis, so I think it's going to be too heavy for the printer, and I don't want to end up with that problem. And it also is expensive to do a direct drive right now. Now the final thing is another thing we did talk about with the software. Now that is frozen software. I think that is the biggest thing with this printer that I've had, was their frozen software. Now that was not with the base software, that was with the upgraded CR Touch software. Easy fix was just to upload the Jiver software, or the upgraded Ender 3 V2 software. Fixed it right away, haven't had that problem since, but that problem with the Ender printers is not an unoccurrence problem. That is the same reason why I actually sent back my Ender 3 Pro, is because my prints kept freezing mid-print. Now at the time I didn't know I could upgrade the software, so I ended up sending it back and getting this new printer. Now both of my printers work perfectly fine on the original software, and they only crashed on the CR Touch software. They've had no problems on this Jiver software, so if you want to completely avoid everything, just download the Jiver software, and so that way you don't have to worry about the freezing or prints. Finally, we're going to wrap up this talking about the year in review of the Ender 3 V2 with the pros and what I loved most about this printer. Now first up, as I stated in the beginning, prints come out amazing. I absolutely love the print quality, especially for the price that you get that this machine makes. I've had so many cool prints come out and so many cool projects be completed because of this printer, and it's been honestly super dope. This printer has been extremely reliable. Most of the time I set it, forget it, and don't have to worry about it. And I know that is not something looked upon too greatly in the 3D printing community, but that is something I do because I am running around a lot and doing a bunch of different things. So I set it and forget it a lot. I do a lot of overnight prints. I do day prints. I do a lot of different prints, but I really don't have to worry with this machine. This machine is a workhorse. I think my longest print so far has been 3 days, and I had absolutely no problems, and I honestly didn't even have a worry about having problems with that print. The last two things that I absolutely love about this printer is the easeability of being able to tinker with this machine, as well as the community back support with it. Now it is so easy, in my opinion, to upgrade and swap out a bunch of things on this printer, and it makes it like kind of where you can make this machine your own. There's also so many prints that you can even do to upgrade your machine, as you can see mine right here. The ease of tinker was something that I didn't consider before. I was not looking to really tinker my machine. When I initially bought the Ender 3 V2, I was just looking to put it out and that's it. But I have to say, I absolutely love tinkering this machine now, once I became comfortable. I mean, I can upgrade this even further. I can add a direct drive, swap out my fans, I can add a new nozzle, get a touchscreen interface, I can move this over. I can get the Ender extender, make this printer huge. I mean, there's so many things you can do with the Ender 3 V2. It's actually insane, and it kind of keeps it nice, new, and fresh. And it's something I definitely would say is a pro. And the community backing and community support is honestly the biggest, I think, benefit of having the Ender 3 V2. If you ever have a problem or want to update something, there are probably tens of thousands of videos online to help you with that. There are so many people out there making guides, helping with the 3D printer problems or creating new software, giving tips, tricks, etc., helping you install updates, helping you install upgrades. I mean, it's just the community support behind this printer is absolutely insane. It's probably one of the best benefits of owning an Ender. Pretty much any, I would say, Creality or Ender 3 Pro, 3 V2, or I think 3 Max printer. The support behind it is insane. I mean, I think this software is, I believe it's fan-made. I don't really know exactly, but as far as I know it is. And it works flawlessly and helps solve my problems. And pretty much I installed every single one of these upgrades with the help of a YouTuber or the community, and to get this printer working flawlessly. So definitely say huge benefit of an Ender 3, Ender 3 Pro, Ender 3 V2 is the support and community behind it. Alright, so on the final part is my recommendation. Do I recommend this printer? And yeah, I 100% recommend this printer. This thing is amazing. I mean, I love this so much. I bought two. I would say this is the best printer for the money. It's the best printer for beginners because it's very super easy to use. It's also the best printers for non-beginners because this is something you can take, tinker with, move around, add a bunch of different things, and most importantly, it's a workhorse. This thing is super reliable and super dope. So if you have a 3D print farm, you just need another printer to fill a spot where you can set it, forget it, you know, get the upgrades on this thing. That way everything almost works flawlessly, and it's great. It's honestly super amazing, and I love this printer so much. So that's gonna wrap it up today. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Now, this definitely was a different video. I will be getting back to doing more print videos. I know for the last 2 times I've been doing a lot more talking than print videos, but I really wanted to give my year in review of the Ender 3 V2 because I think it's important. I think you guys care and want to know. There's a lot of reviews right away of the Ender 3 V2, either right out of the box or maybe a couple of months down the line, but I don't think there's many of looking back on it over a year and explaining all the different things. So I wanted to do this video for you guys, and I hope this helped if you were looking for a printer, a new printer, or you're just trying to get into a hobby. The Ender 3 V2 is where it's at, honestly. Anyway, guys, hope you all enjoyed. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit that like video if you think I did a good job, as well as leave a comment down below on something that maybe I missed, something that you would change, or your experience with your printer. Alright guys, so that's been it guys. Peace.